official meeting to order. Mr. Secretary, if you call the roll.
Commissioner Norman.
Here.
Commissioner Orlowski.
Here.
Commissioner Muhammad.
He's here. He's on mute.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas. Present.
She's also here, yes.
Commissioner Bristol.
Here.
Commissioner Shaya.
Here.
Commissioner Mader.
Here.
Commissioner Turner.
Present.
Commissioner Delaney. Present. Commissioner Hudson. Commissioner Winston.
Here.
Commissioner Hudson is attempting to get into the meeting.
Okay, then that's a quorum of 11 of 11.
Thank you. Commissioners, you have an updated agenda before you. There were a few emergent items that were added. First being I'll get to it. Some updates in economic development, a transmittal on the new communities development program, and under new business, some treasurer and financial items. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Your second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstention. The agenda is approved. Commissioners, there's in the agenda, there's a consent agenda that contains the June draft minutes, the monthly financial reports and summaries, Long Live Go June sponsorship, DPR
I could even say here or
participation support, consideration of and request response to the LaDroit Park Civic Association Slow Streets request for DDOT to evaluate and determine which streets are appropriate for slow streets.
Chair Turner, can we add the Q3 financial report, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's why I made the financial kind of vague. But sure, yes, we'll separate that out. Anything else? There are the two items, the sponsorship, the park DPR support resolution, the DPR park resolution and the slow streets are both in LaDroit Park. These are both important constituent concerns for Commissioner Norman, and we will be asking that DPR consider and give great weight to the request on the park, and on the slow streets, recommending that they evaluate and determine if any of the suggested streets would qualify as a slow street. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Abstention. Consent agenda items are approved. Thank you. Public Health Advocate, Commissioner Norman.
All right. Earlier this month, I had a conference with Mr. Brown, the program manager of rodent control at DOH. Commercial areas such as restaurants and bars are traditionally have been the site of most rodent activity. However, since the residents have been staying home as a result of the pandemic, there has been about a 20% increase in complaints by residents and calls made to 311 about rodents being seen in the neighborhood. And this has been citywide. So the things that are contributing to this have been, of course, people are staying home. You have a production of a lot more trash. The trash is overflowing. People are cleaning out their basements, putting trash out. So rats are going to homes and neighborhoods to get food. So what will DOH do? They will treat, monitor, and educate the public. And this includes treatments. The treatments are CO2, carbon dioxide to be placed in rodent barrels. You have dry ice. You have the rodent control, birth control, which the rodents have to lick off themselves every 3 months. They have to keep doing it. There's a company called Sinistech that has donated some tanks that have liquid inside that goes into those rat bait stations that you see, the little black boxes that you see in alleys and on by restaurants. There are 13 bait stations that have been located around the city, 2 in each ward. So then we ask, well, how does DOH monitor the effectiveness of the treatment? They use observation by cameras that are placed in the alleys and sensors that are placed in the bait stations to monitor the activity. Some of the education and outreach to the public will include calls that are made to residents by DOH. They're gonna start putting door hangers on residents' doors. They haven't done that as of yet due to the pandemic. And they have material on their website about the use of the dry ice. So what can we do as residents to help control the rodent population? 1, put your trash out after 6:30. Don't allow trash to overflow. Call bulk trash for large items to be picked up. You can call set for 7 items to be picked up at a time. They'll come as many times as you call them, but you can only have 7 items.
Commissioner Norman, is that 6:30 a.m. or p.m.?
PM, yes.
Thanks.
All right. And because street sweeping has been suspended, we can take this opportunity to sweep in front of our homes and in front of our streets. And if you have an elderly neighbor or somebody who's sick, sweep up in front of their area as well. That's the neighborly thing to do. Another thing to consider is a program run by the Mayor's Office of Clean City called Adopt a Block. Residents, business, government play a role in keeping DC clean, safe, and healthy. Anyone can participate, individuals, families, churches, businesses, schools, and other organizations and groups. There are not a lot of requirements. Adopt a minimum of 2 square blocks of residential or commercial area. Agree to conduct a quarterly cleanup day, report and request many available city services to 311, such as bulk trash pickup, which I discussed earlier, which allows the 7 items to be collected. Maintain this agreement for 2 years and record your cleanup results online. The benefits of this includes improved quality of life, signs with your group's name, letting people know that you're committed to making a difference in your neighborhood, meeting your neighbors, improve community relations, building relationships, skills, and serve as a role model to our youth. And litter-free communities help deter rodents, which is the goal. And you can deter illegal activity, because when people see that you care about your streets and your neighborhood, they're less likely to commit crimes and do other things. A clean community encourages and attracts businesses, economic development, and jobs. So consider ways we can participate in the reduction of rodents in our community by properly disposing of trash, sweeping your blocks, and adopting a block. Thank you.
So I'm next on the agenda with an update on short-term family housing. The building is going up rapidly. Recently, they completed some of the electricity work, and so the building itself now has electricity, which is really exciting. A lot of the work is now being moved inside the building. We are also still soliciting feedback on the Good Neighbor Protocol. Please continue to submit feedback by using the online form. I can send it again in the chat for everyone. And the advisory team, they've moved to a quarterly meeting structure, and we are meeting in July.
Why don't we go to public safety next? Commander Emmerman, are you online?
I am. I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you. Over to you.
Great. Well, thank you guys for having me. I know I was not available last month, and I know Lieutenant Chambers had filled in. I know there was a request for me to be here, and I wanted to make sure I was able to meet with the group today. I want to just do a couple of quick preliminary things. Talk about our crime currently. Our crime is tremendously down. A lot of that is, it's about a 31% reduction right now in the 3rd district. A lot of that is attributed to the fact that people aren't out. You know, with COVID, with people inside, we're not seeing as much of our street activity. And the other thing that's positive about people not being out is when we do have crime on the street, it's kind of easy to find our suspects because they're the only ones still out there. We've also had a lot of great input and cooperation from our communities, being home, seeing things that are out of place, being those extra eyes and ears out in our neighborhood. So that has certainly been helpful to us in reducing our crime. We're hopeful that when things start to open up in further phases and we start coming back to a sense of normalcy, we'll continue that downward trend. I know there was a lot of emails and a lot of concerns as we led up into the 4th of July week with our fireworks. I will say this year was a very trying year for us and for the community. My personal take on it is that we saw it earlier, our fireworks. We saw them larger than they'd been in the past. And we also saw them not always concentrated in the same areas that we saw them from year to year. So we had a much bigger spread, which made it a little bit more challenging for us. I think some of the reasons behind that, I think with COVID, people were cooped up a lot. I think people found this as an avenue to go out and to vent or to go out and be socially active at home and in their neighborhoods and launch fireworks. One of the other things I think, and this is pure speculation on my part, with the lack of available legal fireworks to purchase in DC, I think people went out to the areas that they buy the not so legal ones, which resulted in a lot more of our louder explosions, our bigger pieces of illegal fireworks. And that's my take on it. I did stop an individual personally on July 4th, and I talked to him about where he got them from. And he explained to me very clearly that he got them outside of the city at a place that he knew was illegal, and that's where he brought them into DC. We did recover several, I want to say it was almost 7,000 pieces of fireworks in the 3rd district alone. I think that's probably a very small portion of what launched and blew up in your neighborhoods. But I still think it's a sizable amount that we were able to get. But I am hopeful. I've got a couple creative ideas for next year after talking to one of my other district commanders about how they were able to seize a large amount. So I'm going to keep that one to myself until next year and see how that works out. But I've got a few suggestions that I want to put into place.
Commander, on fireworks, can you talk a little bit about the new program that the mayor seemed to unveil this year with, I guess, firefighters going around to the neighborhoods?
So the mayor realized that it was a very difficult year for fireworks, and I think one of the plans she put into place was to, in addition to MPD trying to deal with it, try and get some of these other folks, some of these other helpers, some of these other agencies involved. Fire department through the fire marshal's office did a lot of outreach and did a lot of working out in the community to try and seize them. Ultimately, when we seize them, we turn them over to the fire department for destruction. So I think that kind of eliminated the middleman of MPD a little bit and got the fire department out there helping us. I know there was a plan, and I honestly, I'm not certain if it ever got off the ground, but to use some of the folks from DPR, from some of our other partner agencies to help us get those off. I'm not sure what their individual results were, but as far as I can tell you, the more help, the merrier out there. It was definitely a challenging year.
Great, and then I'd be happy to talk to you about my ideas for fireworks as well. I think that the city should be sponsoring neighborhood displays and, financing special education and training for those neighborhood displays. So I'd love to talk to you about that.
Sure. I'm sure that's definitely an idea that may be beneficial. We'll see. I will say, in addition to the fireworks, we did, for those of you in the upper end of 1B, we are in the midst of our Summer Crime Initiative right now. For those who aren't familiar with it, Summer Crime Initiative is taking place between 16th Street, Sherman Avenue, from Monroe down to Euclid. It's based every year. We look at areas that have been historic violent crime issues and areas that we've had problems with year after year. And as you know, in the fall, we did a crime initiative for the first time in the fall It included parts of Columbia Heights and the U Street area and Shaw area. This year we went with just the Columbia Heights area. We bring in a captain from outside of the 3rd District. This is Captain Karen, who's from our Special Operations Division. She is responsible for her deployments up there, and she answers directly to me and the Chief of Police on what's going on with the crime. Right now, she has a very sizable crime reduction. A lot of it's based upon the increases of resources we give her, along with also, in a non-COVID world, the partnerships and the outreach that we do with our other agencies. Right now, we're a little slow on those because of what's going on with COVID, but we have been doing some outreach up in the community. If you keep an eye on our Twitter feeds and our social media, we're advertising and posting the things that we've done. So I think we are doing a good job up there, and the Summer Crime Initiative really is intended to get a jump start on that crime reduction. It's not a let's just do it and then pack up and move out. It's kind of one of those let's get everything going and let's get things moving in the right direction and keep that momentum going. In addition to Captain Karen being here for the summer, and that Summer Crime Initiative goes from May 1 through August 31st. We did have a little bit of turnover in some of our staffing. So for those who are not aware, Captain Weaver, who was the Sector 1 captain up in 302 and 304, retired this month. So he is gone. We have a vacancy for that. Lieutenant Lindsay, who's one of our senior lieutenants, is actually filling in as the acting captain for Sector 1. And then for those in Sector 2, which is 305, 306, and 308, Captain Loftus left the department. He decided there was another opportunity for him outside of law enforcement and left. We have replaced him just this week with Captain Augustine, who, for some of you may be familiar with, was a captain at 3D in the past. He spent about 1.5 years over in our recruiting division. So we brought him back over. So he's going to be jumping in head first into the Sector 2 area to get acclimated back with the community. That's about it for our crime and the issues going on. I do want to jump up on my soapbox for a moment, if I may. I want to just do a quick thank you to our community. I know in the past couple months, it's been a very difficult and a very charged environment as it comes to policing and community relations. I have received countless calls, emails, just text messages of support from our community, thanking us for what we do out there. We are a very progressive police department. And unfortunately, the reason why that is because we knew we were messed up about 20 years ago. The community knew it, we knew it, the Department of Justice knew it, and they came in and had us start reforming things. There's been some talk out in the community or in the media that we have this feeling that we are beyond reform, that we're perfect, we don't need to change anything. Nothing could be further from the truth. We believe that we have made great steps and great leaps and bounds forward as a policing agency, but we also know that reform is never over. We need to continue to reform. But the big thing for us is we want to be a part of that discussion. As the chief of police, was very vocal with the emergency legislation that was passed by the council. The problem with emergency legislation is nobody gets to put input into it. No community input, no police department input, just the council. And as you saw from their emergency legislation, which was supposed to go into effect July 7th, based upon their legislation, they realized there were flaws with it because it wasn't open to those discussions, because there wasn't the input of what will happen if A, B, and C happen. And as a result, they had to change a lot of the legislation before it goes into effect. So we're absolutely understanding and want to be at the table to be part of that reform discussion. But we do feel that we have a voice that needs to be part of it, as we feel that the community does too. We recognize that reforms are needed in law enforcement, in housing, in education, in job opportunities, in socioeconomic status. There's reform needed in all of those things. We're happy to be the first part, but we also want everyone to understand that all of those other entities have reforms that are needed to solve the inequalities that we have in this nation right now. But we are eager to continue those discussions. As part of those discussions and as part of those challenges that we're seeing right now, there is budget issues that have come up. One of the big things that we're concerned, well, two of the big things we're concerned about is the proposed budget that was cut for our cadet program. For those who don't know, cadets are DC residents aged 17 to 24 that are employed by the MPD on a part-time basis and put through school at the University of District of Columbia. So they get college credits and a college degree, and then matriculate into policing with the MPD. These are exactly what we want in our police department. Young individuals from our city, part of our city, who want to continue to be part of our policing in our city. You can't ask for a better candidate than that. But that program was cut. You know, we have, I think, 100 in it now, and we try to push it to 200, and the council cut that program. These are kids that we want on the police department, that I think the community wants on the police department. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to increase that program. And I think there is a demand for these folks that do want to get into this program. And it's an outstanding program. The retention rate of these officers is fantastic. After they go through it, they stay on for a long time. You know, we have assistant chiefs right now in the department, 2 of them off the top of my head, who were former cadets. So that's just a perfect example of this homegrown, you know, law enforcement pipeline that we want to maintain. The other concern that we have is the cutting of the budget, which is effectively going to reduce the number of officers on our street. With the inability to hire additional officers through attrition of retirement, resignations, disabilities, and any other thing that gets somebody off the department, terminations, anything that gets somebody off the department, we're going to wind out losing projected about 200 to 300 officers over the next year, because we're not going to be able to hire until fiscal year 22 at this point. And we can't just hire on a dime like that. It takes us a while to put people through background and do those things. So those are concerns that we have from the police department's perspective. And we hope that if the commissioners, if the community has those same concerns, that you speak out to your council members. We understand, yes, we do take a lot of money at the police department. We absolutely understand that. But it's also the majority of our money goes to salaries. It goes to the officers that we put out on the street every day. And I know commissioners on here, I won't point out anybody in particular, have called me before and said, we need more officers in this community. We want more visibility. We need officers here. If this budget goes through as is and slashes the funds of the MPD, we may not have more officers over time to be in your neighborhood. You may actually see less. So it's just a food for thought. Just again, me standing up on my little soapbox. But I appreciate you allowing me to do that.
Thanks a
James,
lot.
you're on mute.
All right, Commissioner Turner, are you back online?
Commissioner Turner, you're on mute.
I left Commissioner Turner speechless. That's what it was.
Exactly, exactly.
If wishing made it so.
Maybe I can jump in. Okay.
I thought Amanda was controlling our mute and unmute. Thank you for your comments, and yes, you left me speechless because I would just repeat things I've said before. And thank you to you and your team for your fine work. Of course, there are always things to be done, and we'll have to continue to work that and push that. Unfortunately, this environment is very difficult right now for everything, for a multitude of reasons. So let's take a couple of questions and then move on through the agenda. Andy, you have a question? Commissioner Delaney?
I do. Commander Emmerman, thanks so much for coming to speak. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you saying those things. I think it is a tough time for the community and its relationship with police, and I really appreciate you putting that out there. Not to kind of drag sort of the demonstrations back into the beginning of your conversation, but I think we've gotten a lot of comments, at least I've heard a lot of comments from the community about what happened on Swan Street on June 1st. And I was wondering if you could speak to that and speak to the way that MPD is reviewing that incident.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. And for those who may or may not be aware, I was actually at that scene. So the Swan Street incident began as a demonstration, a peaceful demonstration, which goes on every day in our city. A large group of individuals left from the downtown area and began marching on 14th Street, protesting, demonstrating, doing everything we expected them to do. Unfortunately, some within that group, probably utilizing the cover of a large group, because it was a very large group, took the opportunity to vandalize things, to throw objects at police officers who were trying to escort them up through the city. And then ultimately at about, I want to say it was 14th and Euclid, groups within that demonstration incinerated a police car. They lit a police car on fire, and this is not just a regular police car, this is a take-home car. So this is a car that belongs to a police officer who lives in our city, who lives in our community, actually lives in 1B, and his police car was completely destroyed. So whatever thousands of dollars that is, but out within the area of his home. So I can't imagine what he went through seeing that, knowing that his neighborhood, his vehicle, which he uses to serve the community, was destroyed. But ultimately, a decision was made at that point, and we decided that this peaceful demonstration was no longer peaceful. So to do that, at this point, we were after our curfew. Curfew was in place at 7 p.m. I believe this was about 9:15, 9:30. We made an attempt to initiate an arrest procedure, which would involve us, after multiple warnings, which have been given throughout the day and throughout the march, would involve us surrounding the group and effecting arrests. That was, I think, attempted on 14th Street. The group decided that that wasn't going to happen, at which point they kind of turned south on us and went back down towards 15th Street and through Florida and onto 15th Street. Ultimately, we were able to regroup our officers, and around the area of Swan Street on 15th Street, we were able to effectuate that surrounding of them and make those arrests. During the course of the arrests, Metropolitan Police Department officers on that scene did utilize pepper spray. There was not any tear gas utilized. And the use of pepper spray, as any use of force by our department, is under investigation. It's under investigation by our Internal Affairs Division. The process is going to involve them taking statements from officers involved, individuals who come forward and indicate that they were sprayed, witnesses, as well as our body-worn camera footages from our officers on the scene. So we do know that pepper spray was utilized, but the media has erroneously said that there was tear gas. I want to say 194 individuals, I believe, were arrested that evening on Swan Street, and that was for violation of the mayor's curfew. Unfortunately, based upon the crowd that size, we were not able to identify who specifically threw bottles at officers. We were not able to identify who was the one who lit the scout car on fire. So we did not charge anybody in that scene with the destruction of property, with anything else. We charged them all with being out in violation of the curfew. Those cases were, like I say, where individuals were processed and then were released. I think there was another commissioner in a different ANC who asked me if anybody was held. I'm not aware of anybody still being detained on that. But that is what happened in that Swan Street incident. While we were effecting the arrest and preparing to arrest individuals, a group of individuals did run towards a residence. Some of the officers on the scene, based upon my understanding, believe they were breaking into a residence. We did receive a call from at least another residence on the block who called 911 thinking people were breaking into his home. That is on public record. They were kicking at his door. He thought somebody was trying to break in. He called 911. So I don't think it was far-fetched for the officers to think that these folks were parading into a home based on a burglary. Once they realized that that was taking place, that it was not a burglary and an individual was letting them in, we cut off the group that was fleeing the arrest scene and then continued with our arrest operations.
Great. Thank you, Commander Emmerman.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's all I have. James, you're still on mute.
Thank you, Commander Immerman-Liss, for coming. We still need public safety. We need to do a community forum on MPD. Obviously, there's a lot of questions, and they want to be asked here at the ANC meeting, and we just don't have enough time for it.
Yeah, we had Lieutenant Chambers join us at our last meeting, and we had a good discussion about what's going on in MPD right now and how they're reviewing their policies. I think this is probably a good transition for Amanda to give an update about what happened at our last public safety and community engagement.
We need to do a forum for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can definitely do that for this month. So July, we're planning our meeting for the end of the month, and Commander, I'll make sure to reach out to you and get your schedule so we can have you on and any other captains or lieutenants who might be useful to the conversation as well.
Absolutely. It'll be my pleasure to be there.
Perfect.
Thank
yeah.
you.
If I could say one more thing, I just want to say there's a thought out there right now that you can't be in favor of reforms and support your police. You can do both. They're not one or the other. And I think that's where we're trying to get that message out, that we understand that there's, like I say, there's tensions, there's issues, there's change that needs to be done. But I do think, and I from the support I'm getting from the community, we are doing a pretty good job. We can always do better, but I think that the the issues that, you know, when we look at what happened in Minneapolis, which I think, with the exception of 4 people in this world, think that that was an awful thing, and those 4 people have been arrested. I think everybody understands that that was an awful tragedy that should never have happened. And it took an incident like that for the Minneapolis Police Department to ban chokeholds. Well, we did that 5 years ago because we knew that there was no place for that in law enforcement. We did not need to have that. So it's just one of those, I think, indicators of our progressiveness, our continuing to work with our communities, and hopefully not have things like that occur in our city because of the relationships we have with our communities and the progressive nature of our department.
Thank you. Next item, Commissioner Delaney, you have a resolution.
I do. I would like to introduce a resolution to the commission. Commander, this is sort of based on the conversation that you had about budget. There were a number of members of the community that joined our last ANC Public Safety and Community Engagement meeting, including Long Live Go-Go and the Sunrise Movement. We heard from them at length about the work that they're doing in the community to understand the changes that need to be made, and the work that they've been doing to put together requests for changes to the City Council's budget. We put together a resolution identifying 4 areas where we think that the City Council can reconsider the allocation of funds. Inside of these 4, we have defunding for the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, the increases in funding for DC's National Guard, the cutting of funding for DC inmate services, and the increases in funding for inmate custody. These are programs that we believe, at least for the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, ought not to be cut, and the Office of the Criminal Code Reform Commission is also getting a 48.2% decrease in funding. I think it's important to note that as part of this resolution, we are not requesting that the DC City Council cut funding for MPD. Per Commander Emmerman's comments, we know that the DC Cadet program has been cut. I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think that is an important point. Having local young members of the community and of the city who want to be part of policing here in the city is really important. But we have identified other programs that are either being cut or seeing an increase in funding that we believe are detrimental to the safety of the community and to the long-term health of alternatives to policing in terms of nonviolent and crime reduction. The last point that I'll make, and then I will make the motion and we can discuss as a commission, is we recognize and appreciate the need for community-specific policy recommendations from ANC bodies. There have been a number of members of the commission who are concerned that this is not ANC 1B specific enough. However, the comment that I guess I would make is the city budget applies broadly across all DC wards and ANC communities, and ANC 1B is one of the few ANCs that annually submits feedback and recommendations to the City Council on their budget proposals. Therefore, the Council's upcoming vote on revisions to the FY21 budget, I think, is a matter of consideration for ANC 1B insofar as this community is affected by the investment decisions that the City Council makes. Dan, I guess I would open it up to you, Commissioner Winston, for any additional comment before we make a motion.
Danny, I think you captured it very well. Thanks. I'm glad to collaborate on this with you in the committee.
Okay, then Commissioner Turner, I would like to make a motion that ANC 1B adopt a resolution in pursuit of a number of budget changes from the DC City Council to the FY21 budget.
Commissioner, this is the resolution that's in your packet. We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Commissioners, discussion?
Hey, Commissioner Delaney, just one quick question. First of all, thanks to you and Commissioner Winston for putting this together. I appreciate the effort in which it's being made. The one question that I had was in reference to the paragraph pertaining to the DC National Guard, where you called out, I think, additional FTE positions that are being funded by the council. Specifically, they seem to be administrative type positions within the National Guard, and these positions would not be used in any kind of police force or other activities. So I'm just wondering why we're choosing to call out those type of administrative positions, which, I mean, the DC National Guard and, quite frankly, all military units are in desperate need of, you know, kind of across the board. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think we were looking comprehensively at the budget in terms of places where we were seeing increases and decreases in funding, and looking for opportunities to siphon funds away from programs that we didn't believe were going to contribute to the long-term health of community building and nonviolent crime reduction. Three of the FTEs, 3 of the 7 FTEs are IT staff. To your point, I think that you know, this is a 4.7% increase in funding of about $680,000. This is money that that both Commissioner Winston and I felt could be allocated in a different way, but I'm welcome to. I guess I'm open to amendments if we feel like this is not worth.
Which one thing I'd also point out is that the resolution doesn't say that, you know, those positions aren't useful. Just simply saying like this is among the things that are changing and increasing. It doesn't actually call for elimination of that. If that's what's important, those positions can be funding. But the suggestion is that the funding for the National Guard should be held constant. And so I think.
Yeah, I guess just where I was coming from, I think all of the other portions that are outlined within the proposed resolution makes sense. This one to me kind of stuck out as maybe being a detractor and something that people would focus on as a way not to focus on the rest of it. And so for me, that was the one kind of paragraph that didn't quite mesh with, I think, the very relevant points that the other sections are in fact making, and the direct connection to law enforcement efforts that aren't just direct policing, but more social service types activities. That's kind of what I was getting at. So I don't know if the rest of the commission feels strongly about it, but my amendment might be to strip that paragraph out.
Okay.
I'm interested in hearing Commander Emmerman's thoughts on the resolution itself. Will this harm the way that you're able to interact and operate with the community?
The reduction of the MPD's funding, or what the commission is in favor of?
Both.
I think that the reduction in the police budget, if it's going to reduce the number of officers we have on the street, I do believe that's going to reduce our ability to interact with the community. Remember that the city has increased in population tremendously over the past few years, and our calls for service to 911 have increased exponentially as well. All that while our response times have decreased. So we're working at getting to community members faster in times of need with more calls for service. I think with less officers, we're going to see those response times increase. We're going to see concerns from the community about a slower MPD. We're going to see less officers patrolling our streets, interacting with our communities. And then when I say interacting, I mean also in the positive ways that we do. So I think that is certainly an issue. I do understand, like I said earlier, we have the big budget. I know it's, you know, when people talk about taking a little bit from here and a little bit from there, that from the biggest pile, that's probably the easiest way to do it. But unfortunately, like I say, as the mayor said, she's allocated not a penny more and not a penny less than what she believes we need. So I do think it's going to impact us. I think some of these other programs, I mean, the violence interruption program, I think we have yet to, unfortunately, see, I think, quantitative success out of it. And that may just be because maybe we need to revise how we're doing it. Maybe it's a program that will work. Maybe it's something that needs to plant its seeds and do well. But I mean, as we've seen, our gun violence and our homicides have gone up in the 3 years that we've had violence interruption programs out there. So maybe it's just how we're doing it. Maybe there's not enough of it. Maybe there's, like I say, the wrong way that we're doing it. I don't know that answer, but I don't know how we get it to the point where we're seeing those
Commander, isn't it also true that we've seen gun violence go up as police budgets have gone up? I mean, drawing that type of conclusion seems a pretty false argument to me. You know, so I think that I haven't decided my position on this resolution yet, and I'm still working through it, honestly, in real time. But I think I come down on the side of where there are certain things that we have been doing that also haven't proven to be effective by the metrics. And that maybe it's time to take a different approach in some of those areas. I understand, and I'm gonna be very frank here, you and the chief work for the mayor and are pushing the mayor's budget. That's simply how this works. And so I think that outside input to draw attention to some of the areas that may be seen as areas to focus on in the mayor's budget, to talk about how things could be different, is helpful. I mean, the mayor, the mayor's budget is the mayor's budget, and she is the boss of the chief of police, who is essentially your boss. This is so. I think it's a bit without having the other sides here. I think we should talk with the commissioners and listen to the public's comments on this.
Okay, so here's what we're going. We have a motion.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion.
Chair Turner, could I just make a quick factual
be
statement?
Quick. We're going to get to a vote.
The motion does not propose or call for reducing MPD's budget or the number of officers.
We just want to be very clear about that. This is about reductions in funding for programs that we believe are alternatives to our alternative crime reduction programs, and comments on increases in funding for programs that we don't believe should be increased.
Well, we have a motion on the table. We know that there needs to be a bigger discussion just around what is community policing, what is the way MPD interacts with the community, how does the community interact with MPD and other sources, and how does the community interact with itself to do a lot of things that they try and force MPD to do. So there's a whole lot of things that need to be dealt with here that's bigger than the conversation we can have here. So we have a motion on the table that's been seconded. All those in favor, aye?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Opposed, nay? Abstentions?
Abstain.
The resolution passes. Thank you.
Chairman, point of whatever. No, there was I just had offered a friendly amendment to it. I didn't know if that had been accepted or not.
It's been accepted.
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah,
Friendly
I think it wasn't clear. The friendly amendment that Commissioner Mader made to remove the paragraph specifically citing the DC's National Guard.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Okay, good. All right, your next meeting is when?
I will follow up with the commander on his schedule, but it will be the second to last week of July.
Okay.
Thank
you. Let's go to ZPD.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commander.
ZPD, Mr. Nelson.
Good evening, everyone. We have one item that you need to address this evening. It's a property located at 1901 13th Street Northwest. It's in an RF1 zone. It's located in 1B12, which is Dan Winston's SMD. And it's a BZA case. The applicant is requesting an area variance from the lot area requirements to construct an additional apartment in an existing 11-unit apartment house at the property located at 1901 13th Street. Committee is recommending that the ANC not support the area variance for the project as presented because the petitioner has not met the burden of proof of practical difficulty for the request. However, because of the benefit to the immediate community of additional IZ units, the committee would recommend supporting the project if the request of the developer commits to designating the proposed unit as an IZ unit at 80% AMI.
Okay, Commissioner Winston, comments?
Yeah, so I voted against the committee's recommendation here, and I don't support it. It was a close vote, 3-2. this property is in my SMD, and it's a small laundry room that's currently not being used, formerly a laundry room not being used, and the idea is to make it into a dwelling unit. I understand and support very much IZ and affordable housing, but I also support housing of all types. And I see in this, I think I would recommend that the commission actually support the commission support the application as it's currently written, and to be clear, that is actually rejecting the committee's recommendation.
Well, it's the committee's responsibility to help with the detailed due diligence, to really look at each and every request and gain community input and have thoughtful community members provide their opinions on things. And then that comes to us for a decision of what we're going to do. So as the commissioner of jurisdiction, what is your motion?
So I would move that we support the application as it's been submitted currently.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
I second. Rob seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioners, are there any comments on this or questions?
I have a question, and it's actually for Patrick. I'm just curious, you know, I understand how the committee voted, and I'm just curious if we go with the motion that Commissioner Winston has put forth, is this setting any kind of precedent for LaDroit Park overall in terms of what the committee, applications that the committee anticipates receiving and reviewing in the near term?
This isn't LaDroit Park.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was reading something else. for the specific area.
Well, it's kind of hard for me to give you a simple answer to that, but the issue that is being addressed is the subtlety changes that were put into the new code about how IZ units are applied versus how they were before. And this apartment building precedes the 1957 version. So it was converted in 2003, I believe, under a new owner who converted the apartments that used to use this room that he's asking for now as a laundry room, and put laundry facilities in each apartment. And now, because he's got a vacant room, he wants to make it into a new apartment to add one more apartment to his building, which the committee is not against doing. But under the current regulations, if you are converting a new building into apartments, just like we went through with the whole issue on 421 T Street, it automatically kicks in with IZ units. So the committee's concern on this one in particular is that there wasn't a good argument from the respondent as to what is his argument, why he's asking for this variance and why he would be in opposition to applying the rule for it being an IZ unit. The architects were the ones that were there, and they at the meeting didn't have an answer to what the owner would respond to or not. So that's why the recommendation was left open to say, we're not going to support what he wants unless he's willing to consider making it an IZ unit.
Is the real question here whether or not it's an IZ unit?
Say that again, James.
The real question is to be an IZ unit or not.
In simple terms, yes.
And it's how big is it? Is it a one bedroom?
It's proposed as a 2-bedroom, I believe.
Okay.
Hi, Chair Turner. This is Eric DeBear. I just wanted to introduce myself. I was just let in. I'm a land use counsel for the owner and the applicant in this BZA case. And the only thing I'll add right now is that information I did not know when we attended the subcommittee meeting is that this is actually a rent controlled building. My client did confirm that 5 of the current 11 units are rent controlled, so they are already well under market rate. And I don't know all the intricacies of a very complicated rent control law, but I do know that those units essentially will stay rent controlled for the remainder of time, even if new tenants move in. So I would just say that without IZ, half of the units in the building are still rent controlled and therefore affordable.
Okay. All right, so we've got.
So let me, James, let me just make one brief comment, not to be annoying, but this is part of the problem that we have in our committee, that when we ask specific questions of presenters, and I'm not saying anything bad about Eric because he did a good job, but when we don't have the owners and the people that can answer the questions come to our committees, when we ask them, we don't know that these things happen. So if that point was brought out in the committee, it may have changed the outcome of what the recommendation was. It still doesn't change the logic of where the IZ requirement came up from the committee level, because it's 11 units and one more unit being added. He's asking for a variance to the recommended use space for that to be able to get the additional unit.
Okay. Yeah, the committee can only operate on the information that is given and responses from the applicant. So we have a motion and a second that's been seconded to approve the applicant as presented. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
James, can I just clarify just a point so that we all know what we're voting on?
We're voting on the applicant request.
Right, we're not voting on the recommendation from the committee. We're voting on what the applicant is requesting.
Correct.
The motion that I made.
All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Your next meeting is?
Monday, July 20th.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
You're welcome.
Economic Development Commissioner Hudson.
Hi, everybody. I'm bringing up the list of things I have to talk about. Hold on.
And your camera's off.
I know. We'll get it on in just a second. I have to bring the list over. There. Come on.
Here we go. He's warming up.
I don't know if it's going to work. I turned it on. That's as best as we can do. Well, I can't have, so you're going to have to, there's a still shot of me for the time being. I have to keep this list on my screen so I know what to talk about. So I know, I apologize for being late and I missed the update from Tim talking about what we call reimagining U Street. And we are moving forward with I believe he called it a public use, a community service, yes, about the uses of the building and things like that with the neighbors and stuff that will be organized through the ANC and specifically through the Economic Development Committee. Because we're in a pandemic crisis mode, we're going to try to figure this out as best as we can on how to reach the most residents in the area by working with some of the businesses and the churches and other community groups in the area to reach the members that way. And hopefully we'll be able to pull this off without putting more people at risk with door knocking or anything like that. So stay tuned. We're going to have our first meeting probably in 2 weeks from now, just so I can get enough people to come. We have a very small group. So watch the website for an update on when our meeting will be. And we will start talking about with Tim how we're going to accomplish this project. I can say that we are extremely excited about moving forward on at least one of the properties that we want to talk about. So when we talk about reimagining U Street, I don't know if there was a preface there. We at the ANC are talking about the fire station and police station, the Reeves Center, the property on S Street, and also we include DCHFA. All four of those properties are kind of on the borders of our area, and all have great potential. Unfortunately, again, because of the pandemic, budget cuts, and trying to figure out how to do these things, moving forward on a project that includes all four of those properties at once is a monumental task in the best of times. And so moving forward and getting information on one of those projects that will inform the way that we move on the others is how we're doing right now. So we are still thinking holistically about all the projects, but we've just decided to prioritize getting information about the Reeves Center because of the announcements about the NAACP signing a letter of intent to come to the district, which is incredibly exciting. I have pushed very hard since I became a commissioner of wanting us to have, I always, what was my line? It was something like, when we developed the Reeves Center, I want 150% business use, and I'm willing to negotiate down to 100, because we need more daytime traffic in the area. We need more traffic to help the businesses for lunches, and support them doing daytime business. We've seen many businesses turn over from having lunch service to turning into just a bar, because there's a lack of people walking around during the day on U Street. And we want to have not only the great nightlife, but the great day life. We'll go with that. So that's very excited. Stay tuned for us to let you know how we're going to handle those things. I'm going to turn over to Commissioner Turner to talk about a property at 625 T Street, and then we can talk a little bit about the new communities development program, and a proposal that I have going forward on that.
For 625 T Street, it's a small 1,900 square foot property in front of, across the street from Howard Theater. It was originally purchased, the city remediated it. It was a used car lot, I believe, as a way of redeveloping the area consistent with the Duke plan. The property is now had its first community meeting for disposition, surplusing and disposition, which went very well. There was good attendance on the disposition side. They ran concurrently. It should now go to the council as a request of the mayor to, this property is no longer important or useful in the city portfolio and should be returned to private industry for development. It's a very small parcel of property. In the interim, we are also requesting that it be opened up for beverage and food service for an outside area. It can hold probably a 6 to 8 table space on the outside, and we're working with DMPED to modify the lease agreement. You're not allowed to sell alcohol on DC property. And if this were to go through, there would have to be an update to the lease agreement, as well as insurance to cover alcohol service on the property. Not anticipating a problem, and hope in best case to have that lease agreement executed by the end of the week or beginning of the week and available for use. Every parcel we should look at during the summer months, during the emergency, to make available to small businesses so they can survive. I used to talk about thrive, now I talk about survive, so that they can get some external space and get employees back to work. So that's an update on that. Any questions? I've never worked so hard on a parcel of 1,900 square feet. Commissioner Hudson.
Thank you. I'm probably going to get this wrong if I do it all myself, but I'm going to give the first draft of the update on the new communities development program and ask the chair to back me up on anything that I leave out. We're at a point with the Bruce Monroe property where it's been remanded back to the zoning commission, and they're asking for comments. 1A is the commission of jurisdiction for this, and I believe that 1A has a full handle on it. So I'm proposing that we just reiterate our original commitment to this project with a resolution that we passed several months ago, could have been over a year ago, on this property that we've all, that commissioners that's on the website and things like that, and defer to 1A's position going forward on this with all zoning commission items. Commissioner Turner, is there anything else I should add to that?
I think that hits the high points of it. They are the commission of jurisdiction. The court sent it back on 7 main points: the size of the building, the impact on the neighborhood, and there was a lot of poorly executed language in the zoning order that did not demonstrate full due diligence. So there's a lot of work to be done there by the zoning commission. It's unknown if it will be resolved as is currently stated, or if it may be reopened for reinterpretation under what would probably be the new comp plan at that point. We'll know more as the year progresses. The parcel at Park Morton continues for development and was not challenged. The court order is only impacting the Bruce Monroe property. In our letter, we do emphasize that we are committed and support that housing for low, moderate, and market rate be available anywhere, be integrated, be used to help develop communities, and that vouchers and purchase opportunities at these properties be made available. We have 30 people, I think, currently at Park Morton in properties that are not suitable. We have this at our other housing authority properties, and it's something that as a commission, we're gonna have to push more aggressively on the housing authority to do something with them. And we help them with that.
Yeah, quite simply, the letter is 3 paragraphs that we would submit. It references our old resolution that we passed
2016
several years ago, 4 years ago, talking that we're a party to the above reference, the case that's going on. And then it literally says ANC 1B defers and concurs with the response submitted by ANC 1A, which is the commission of jurisdiction, and then cites our resolution. And then literally the last paragraph, and I'll read it to you because it's very short. Where ANC 1B is committed to providing housing opportunities to rent and buy at all incomes levels and in programs that have demonstrating a warehousing of low income individuals in poorly maintained properties. We believe stronger communities and vibrant neighborhoods will develop when low, moderate, and market and market rate options are integrated with appropriate rental and ownership programs and opportunities. And that's literally the letter, resubmitting our previous resolution.
Is there
So I move that we submit this letter as written with minor technical changes as necessary to be implemented by the chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Commissioners, discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Passes. Thank you. Is there anyone on for Main Streets?
I don't think anyone was able to join tonight, but they have emailed me some updates and I will be sure to distribute. So thank you to everyone there.
Okay.
I don't believe there was a transportation meeting. Commissioner Orlowski, ABR.
Hi, yes, we had a meeting this past month on June the 18th. The majority of the meeting was taken up with discussions with a new business owner on 9th Street who had some issues with his license and how it was transferred from the previous establishment to him. We did end up taking a vote to support what he was asking us to do to get a stipulated license from ABRA, but it turns out that that's not necessary, that what we really had to do was rescind their license application because they had put in a substantial change application. They have to take that back and then continue operating on their current license so that they can start doing what they want to do now. And then we'll revisit the substantial change in the future because they haven't even built that capacity. They haven't even come up with plans to support that substantial change application at this point. So the committee was not comfortable supporting that at this time, but we do want them to be able to operate under what they have currently. So we did that. In subsequent conversations with that business owner and with ABRA, I determined that the best thing for them to do was to rescind their substantial change and go with their current license, and then we'll work on the substantial change later. Other than that, it was mostly logistical stuff. Obviously, we're only sort of slowly moving towards reopening. Renewals are still pretty delayed, although we do have a couple of new placards coming up for review. So to that end, we will likely have a meeting in July because our usual meeting is the third Wednesday. Because we have 5 Wednesdays this month, I'm going to propose moving it to the 22nd instead of the 15th. I think that would be better with timing, give us all a little more time to review what's coming out and still be 2 weeks before our next full ANC meeting. So that's pretty much it for us.
Thank you. I remain confused on the schedule for ABRA. It appears, according to Sarah, she told Rob and myself that all protests will be heard on August 3rd. So good luck with that. That'll be a very long day.
Yeah, I don't, well, thankfully we don't have any ANC protests at the moment. There are several, a group of 5 protests that I'm aware of and community-led protests, but that we are, supporting from a sort of neutral party standpoint. But yeah, for us, it shouldn't be an issue. But I'm also not sure if that August 3rd date is really going to happen. We'll have to see how things are with reopening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now go to announcements from the executive, the council member, commissioners, and community. If any community members would like to speak, please let Amanda know, and she will put you in a queue. We'll begin with the office of the mayor, Mr. Moore.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm sorry about my background, and my house is going crazy. My dogs are barking uncontrollably, so I had to move everything to my car. And I had to move down the street because they're jumping in the window looking for me. So I had to park down the street and keep my air conditioning.
That's commitment.
That's commitment. I apologize. So they can calm down. I don't want them to just misbehave anymore. I have a couple of updates. Hold on for 1 second. Okay. Mayor Bowser and DDOT today announced plans to install car-free lanes in high-traffic corridors that support and improve in bus travel and create space for bicyclists. The DC car-free lanes, which will be designated by red paint and will be installed at the following location beginning in late July. The 14th Street Northwest bus lane pilot that currently under construction, the 16th Street bus lane that will be under construction late summer. To learn more about the program, DDOT bus priorities projects plans, visit d.gov/page/bus priority. Also, DPR DC Fun and Sun Camp starts July 20th, ends August 28th. If you know anyone interested in signing up for a limited in-person full-day summer camp, all fun, normal outdoor camp with social distancing safeguards place. If you want more information, please visit dpr.gov. Also, DC tax deadline for filing payments was postponed to July 15th. So you still have some time if you know any neighbors. And also on the corridor of 400 block of Elm Street and the 700 block of Fairmont Street, the solid waste educational informant program flyer was distributed on that corridor. The steps on Fairmont Street are something terrible. I practice social distancing with gloves and everything. I personally delivered those flyers for more educational purposes for safeguarding the trash and recycling for rodent activity, to lessen rodent activity. Also, Mayor Bowser awarded $3.6 million in HOPE grants, awarded $3.6 million in funding and public health outreach, particularly in the vulnerable population, to support the district response to COVID-19. A full list of the 77 organizations that will receive the 2020 DC HOPE Community Grant. You can visit mocha.dc.gov/page/2020 DC HOPE Community Grant. Also, I have been working closely with the Rodent team as well. I heard Commissioner Norman point out some heavy rodent activity in her SMD. If anyone has heavy rodent activity, please reach out to me. I can have the rodent activity educate and engage with practicing social distancing with the neighbor. If you have a lot of rodent activity in your yard, please do not cover up your holes. Rodents will find another way to make a hole to live in. They do not have a particular house that they go to every day. They can change up any time in any weather. So do not block the holes with rocks or anything like that. If DOH comes, they want to be able to gas those holes and also put the powder down for the rodents. So when they go through that hole, the powder goes on the fur and it will last on them for 14 days, and they will come back and service that area again. So you have any heavy rodent activity in the alley, behind a home, with a lot of rodent activity, please contact me at anthony.moore.dc.gov. Also, we had a couple of issues with men hanging on the corner on 14th and Clifton Street. I've been working with Lieutenant Chambers to address some of those activities, and the property manager, Miss Woodlock, if I'm saying her last name correctly. to address some of those issues. She cited some of the guys might be DC government employees. So right now we're trying to figure out which individuals they are, and engage them guys in some type of communication to move on with that activity from that area. Hold on 1 second. Also, and behind Clifton Terrace, it's been graffiti on the wall behind Clifton Terrace that's been there for quite some time. Today, I talked to the graffiti removal team and engaged with the property management of Clifton Terrace to gain access in that gate so the graffiti team can remove that graffiti behind there. Also, it's a known spot for illegal dumping. I contacted the Eddie Sanders from the alley sweep team to keep an eye on that alley, and as well as the alley on Fairmont or Georgia Avenue 2722 to try to go by there on a regular basis to clean up that area if any illegal dumping persists in that area.
Thank you, Anthony, for your help. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Anthony, I just want to make a comment and say that I'm one of those people on the 700 block of Fairmont that you dropped off that stuff. So now you know what I have to deal with every time I come home and up them steps.
Oh, yes. And then plus it was 90+ degrees. Yes, I understand.
Thank you, Anthony. I have shared the links that you mentioned as you were speaking in the chat with all attendees, and I'll be sure to share that in the follow-up as well. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Good update. Office of Councilmember Nadeau.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Anthony, for those updates. Just have a few updates. So the first budget votes were this past Tuesday, and Councilmember Nadeau introduced an amendment to eliminate a tax credit deemed unnecessary by our CFO to reinvest those funds into the community with a focus on homelessness prevention, affordable housing, and human services programs. Councilmember Nadeau also took several votes on amendments that would serve as revenue generators in order to continue investing more back into the community and address racial inequities in our ward and across the district. We will be sending out specific information around investments in the next few days in a newsletter. You can sign up at www.brianneknadeau.com if you aren't already receiving our newsletters. On Tuesday, the council also gave the mayor the authority to extend the public health emergency, but the mayor has not exercised that authority yet. We'll continue to update residents as we receive updates from the executive. The Transportation and Environment Committee will be marking up the Vision Zero legislation on Friday at 2 p.m. You can watch online on the council site or tune in to Channel 13. This legislation will impact future infrastructure projects and amends policy around bike and bus lanes, sidewalks, and red light cameras. And we also have our Community Safety Forum, which is going to be held on July 15th at 6:30. And you can also sign up at www.brianneknadeau.com. The Community Safety Forum is a continuation of our teletown hall that we had on June 17th. And that's all I have.
Community announcements, Nick?
Forgive me, make a quick announcement.
Sure.
Just wanted to announce for everyone that I'm not going to be running again for 1B12. I'm unfortunately moving just a couple blocks away next year, so wouldn't be able to serve out a full term. Wanted to let everyone know. so that if anyone's interested in running, they might reach out to me or just go and pick up the petitions to run. This has been one of the great honors of my life, and I'm looking forward to continuing to serve for the next 6 months. But I just want to make this public announcement so that anyone who's interested and is listening to the meeting, they have the opportunity to explore running. This has just been a great privilege. Look forward to continuing to work with you all for the next 6 months. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Commissioner. You will be missed.
So I have allowed our community member, Nick Delzone, to speak here. Are you able to unmute yourself, Nick? And then we'd love to hear your announcement. And then we have one person after Nick, and then I think we're good.
You are unmuted. There you go. All right, thank you, ANC 1B. My name is Nick Delzone, and I want to report for our association, DuPont East Civic Action Association. You may know that we have a campaign to house the homeless in the pandemic. We are collaborating with other associations around the city, including the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, which has a petition. We participated on Monday with the rally for housing, and we were encouraged by the amendment introduced by Robert White, the council member, to take $60 million from the streetcar budget and apply it to housing repairs and housing the homeless. And that vote on Tuesday failed, although it got the vote of Councilmember Nadeau, which we appreciate, and we will follow this up. The second thing I want to talk about is DECA's resolution calling for racial justice. In view of the depraved act on May 31st of the death of George Floyd, one of our board members came to us and said that we had to do something. And we composed a beautiful resolution, and it includes a few things. I'm just going to point these out to you. That we support Black Lives Matter and their program, that we call for a re-examination of police standards and the abolishment of chokeholds, as already abolished in DC, but things like that need to be examined. We call for the re-examination of the budget, the public funds that go to the police department. And this is in particular with respect to the fact that the city has really relied on the police, who are not really equipped to handle homeless problems, domestic abuse. They really should be psychiatric social workers and the like. And this burden should really be taken by the city and not rely on the police department for it. We condemn the use of military force in public protest, and we support the removal of Confederate statues, including the Confederate General Albert Pike from Judiciary Square. So I'm glad to have this opportunity to make my announcements, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And now we will have Latoya Davenport. She will come on and give some updates from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Latoya, if you just want to introduce yourself and introduce your role as well, that would be great.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, everyone. I'm Latoya Davenport, the 3rd District Outreach Specialist for the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm located at the 3rd District. I work alongside with Anita LaRue, the Community Prosecutor for 3D and 7D. I just wanted to give 3 updates. On July 17th, we are having a youth summit for the DC youth. It's an all-day event. It's going to be virtually. We are doing an art contest where the youth can win gift cards. We're having a day of education and entertainment. So if you know any youth that's interested, please send me your information and I can provide you with all the information regarding the upcoming youth summit. Also on July 21st, my office and the mayor's office, we are hosting a resource fair. We're going to have nonprofit agencies as well as federal and local government agencies doing a virtual webinar just to introduce some of the Ward 1 partners, DPW, DDOT, CSOSA, just to talk about some of the concerns that the community may be having, and we'll be there to address them. Also, on July 23rd, we are having a hate bias task force meeting. If anyone is interested in that, I could also send you the information regarding our hate bias task force meeting.
Okay, any questions for LaToya? LaToya, would you like a recurring spot on the agenda?
Please.
Okay.
Careful, baby.
All right, will do.
Thank you. And I will be watching the chat to make sure I get the information to those who are requesting it.
Okay. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, Amanda, are there any other community comments?
Nope, that is it. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move to new business. We have an election of the treasurer. Maybe if our current treasurer wants to talk about why we're electing a new one.
Sure. I already spilled beans. Well, I unfortunately have to resign. So I have to give up my spot as treasurer. I'll give remarks in a little bit about what this has meant to me.
Thank you. Okay, so we do need to fill the treasurer position. I see that Commissioner Hudson has dropped off, so I'd like to nominate Commissioner Hudson to be treasurer.
Second.
Third.
Are there any other candidates for treasurer? Having no other candidates, Commissioner Hudson will become our treasurer. We now need
to Commissioner Hudson.
And condolences to us, maybe. We need to now vote on authorization for signature authority, the bank card with the auditor. So I'll just lump it all together into one item and call it authorization for the treasurer to conduct financial transactions.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? Abstentions? And our last item is Bristol Speaks, up to 1 hour.
Well, I will definitely not take an hour. I will make this brief. I'm very excited to announce that I am now officially a homeowner, which is very exciting.
Congratulations.
Equity Club, right? So in addition to building equity, the real reason why I'm resigning is, due to health reasons. My old apartment caused, great hardship for me, and it was literally impossible to find new housing in my SMD. My SMD is gerrymandered like there's no tomorrow. I mean, it was just very difficult to find anything. I couldn't even find anything in Ward 1. And so very sad to be leaving that behind. But I was hoping to, share a few top memories with you guys. So, that I don't start bawling, but also can help, celebrate all of this great work. Being commissioner has meant so much to me. It's been a fantastic experience, and it's just been very, very meaningful. Way back in 2017, hosting a town hall with Commissioner Mader that drew dozens of people to the neighborhood. Who knew that apparently this was one of the first community meetings that we had hosted in, 10 years. That was what was told to me after we hosted this meeting, and, really proud to engage the community. Speaking of engaging the community, the first time that I canvassed the neighborhood on the mayor's security camera program, I also got an email from a neighbor that said that they were upset that I accidentally mentioned gun violence in front of their child. Great, great lesson on situational awareness. couldn't apologize enough to her, but you know, you really learn a lot as a commissioner. Of course, starting and then disbanding the Green Working Group after every single member moved away. We did have a successful pilot program where we did, you know, alter the RFP for short-term family housing to advocate for a building that had higher energy efficiency standards. And so we were able to weight that in the RFP, and so that was a really exciting victory. Speaking of short-term family housing, I also, in addition to that, I was also put on a lot of not very meaningful task forces. And so I had a lot of fun actually doing something within those task forces, like, you know, the ones related to the budget and the ANC comp plan. And so appreciate being given those opportunities early on, because that helped me show some leadership. Also very, very proud of my perfect attendance. Literally, commissioners, we have one job, or maybe one job: show up to these meetings. And I think our attendance, you know, overall has gotten a lot better, and I'm proud to see us, you know, 11 out of 11. Hopefully you guys will be 12 out of 12 soon, but literally it is our job to show up and represent the community, and very proud of that. Speaking of representing our community, we also successfully revamped our sponsorship program alongside former Commissioner Smith, and I'm very proud to have attended nearly every single community event that we did sponsor, so that has been very meaningful. Speaking of financials, you know, as your treasurer, it has not always been easy. I like to say that I've braved the stone tablet. Way back in, I think it was 2018 at this point, Gottlieb, he changed, so basically the Office of the ANC took over all of our finances. It switched from the DC Auditor's Office, and instead of keeping a very functional, you know, financial reporting program, what he did was he transferred every single ANC to their own workbook, and it has just been such a mess. You know, Gottlieb has, you know, put roadblocks every step of the way for us, but we ended up receiving all of our allotments. It's actually very difficult. There was a point where I sent 85 photos to Gottlieb of our entire checkbook because there was a discrepancy that he believes that, you know, is there, but, you know, it's a clerical error. You know, way back in the day, and was never able to find anything. And so I'm very proud that, you know, with our finances, we are receiving our allotments again. And since I've started as treasurer, I've added more than $40,000 to our account.
Wow.
Since then, yeah, seriously, it pays to be frugal. We're saving for something meaningful. That's what I like to say. In addition, was very proud to help save the 54 bus. I think that was a huge and recent victory, and really, really happy about that. And then short-term family housing, I think I spent the majority of my time on this project. We hosted numerous conversations, and the amount of community input that we received was excellent. I've never received more feedback on a project, and really appreciate the community engaging in dialogue. I know there were a lot of difficult conversations, but we ultimately created, or are creating, a home for 35 homeless families, as well as a permanent home for 15 seniors or senior families that are experiencing or that have supportive housing and that need a permanent place to stay. And so, oh, and then one last thing, celebrating and both excoriating MPD at the same time. You know, I really, as Anthony said, we still continue to have a lot of issues over at 14th and Clifton, and I'm very grateful for the partnerships among, you know, the entire community to make that happen. And so with that partnership last year, we were able to stop an illegal block party that the community members that actually live on the street did not want. And so after years of work and collaboration, I was really pleased that we were able to get that outcome for the neighborhood. And so I did want to have a few parting words for you guys. Most of the issues in my SMD are related to gentrification. These are some really deep-seated emotional conversations that often unfairly get pinned on race when that's really not the case. And so it's been my privilege to mediate a ton of conversations that just start off on the wrong foot, and would just like to implore you know, people that have been in the neighborhood for a long time, people that haven't or new, to assume the best intentions going into these conversations. I think that would really go a long way. A lot of the conversations or the side conversations that I've had with groups are, no, this person really meant this or this person meant that. And we all just stop and listen. I think a lot of that can be avoided. To my fellow commissioners, thank you for your support. I wish we had more time together, and I wish I was able to collaborate with you guys a little bit more. In my job, we have this strategic 10-year vision, and we've outlined, you know, how exactly we're going to get there. There's various different facets of it. And one of the facets that my boss identified was, she coined this term. It's pretty incredible if you think about it, but it's called aggressive collaboration. And I would like to challenge our commission to think about that. Aggressive collaboration is intentional collaboration that you do and that you seek out, even when it is difficult or it's challenging or you know, it might not make sense. It's seeking those additional, that additional feedback and input, you know, even when it's a little bit harder, or, you know, you don't have a relationship with, you know, either it's a commissioner or even a different ANC. And so I want to challenge our commissioners to, you know, continue to work with each other and to even work better. And then finally, especially to young women of color, sorry, I told myself I was not going to cry. Especially to young women of color, please, please run for the ANC. You literally do not have to know anything about the ANC in order to get involved. I had never been to an ANC meeting until after I was elected, and I ran as a write-in, and you know, it was a week-long campaign. And the barrier to entry, it's so low, but what we can do as commissioners, it's incredible. We can achieve so much with this position, and you know, I promise to show up and work hard, and you know, I do believe that I did that. I love that it's taken me 3.5 years to finally cry at a commission meeting. My very first meeting, I will never forget, a commissioner burst out into tears on the dais, basically, and I was just like, what in the world did I just sign up for? And so, you know, there are just so many emotions involved with this, and it's just been such a pleasure representing the community. It literally was a dream come true to represent you guys, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunity and hope that I can continue to serve my neighborhood where I am now. Thank you.
Commissioner Bristol, Jen, I want to express my personal appreciation of working with you as a commissioner, for your leadership. And I will say that you have fully embraced aggressive collaboration. I think if anyone demonstrates that you do. And although sometimes it can be taken a little rough, it's never meant that way. It's meant with good-hearted desire for a best and most collaborative outcome. And I do think we'll have other opportunities as you hopefully will work with our new treasurer Hudson, on learning how to work the 1997 version of Lotus 123. And we will find a time after the emergency where you'll get your certificate of perfect attendance, as well as your plaque as a commissioner. And I promise it not to be my typo today of a plague of being a commissioner. So we will be getting together again, but again, thank you for your service, and thank you for your time, and we know where you live. Other commissioners?
Jen, it's been a delight. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Jen, yeah, it's been amazing kind of going through this journey with you, and I'm really gonna miss you. And I know we'll keep in touch, but it's just not gonna be the same without having you on the EC and just down the street tackling similar issues that we deal with up here on 14th and Fairmont and a few others. But man, you've been a true partner in crime. I'm really gonna miss you. But so happy that you've landed a permanent place and a new home in DC. So,
thank you.
Yeah, Jen, you were my first introduction to the commission, and it was a really good one. And I really appreciate the fire and the commitment that you've brought to this place, and I think it's made us all better. So hopefully we'll see more of you, and we'll see you around town.
Thanks.
Congrats to you, and your presence will be sorely missed, and definitely felt. It'll be hard to think of how we can replace your energy, your passion, and dedication on short-term family housing and so many other issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
To reiterate, I'll reiterate everything everybody else said. You're going to be very missed. Congratulations on the new home, and you can still come to all of our committee meetings if you want. Like, no one's gonna stop. So please do.
Jen, congratulations on your new place. Thank you for your service as a commissioner, your leadership, your commitment to excellence, and your thought-provoking comments to keep all of us commissioners on our toes. We really appreciated all that you've done, and we hope to continue a relationship with you, even though you're moving out of the area. So congratulations again, and thank you.
Thank you.
I know Commissioner Hudson has something to say, but I wanted to jump in and Jen just add my voice and say thank you so much for being a leader and someone who I absolutely have looked up to every day and everything that I do for the commission. So good luck with everything. I know you're going to thrive, and I'll keep retweeting you no matter what it's about.
Thanks.
Well, now I have to say something. Hey, Jen, I really appreciate the work that you've done on the commission. I know that the treasurer's transition and things like that was very difficult to get a handle on, and it's an thankless job that just happened behind the scenes. And honestly, that's how it should work. Also, all your other work is just as important, but literally just keeping things running is the most important thing on the ANC. So I appreciate that. And there's so much more to say, but I'm just going to leave it sweet, and we'll text and get in touch as soon as we can all do that again.
Thank you.
And I want to say as well, you're definitely going to be missed. Your energy, your passion is extremely high, and I enjoyed every second of just watching you represent the community. And outside of the ANC meetings, I remember the few times when we bump into each other walking to U Street in the morning during AM rush hour. And those conversations really meant a lot, because listening to you and understanding and feeling your passion is really exceptional. I know we all work together as commissioners, but I never really thought I'd be bumping to a commissioner every so often, walking to U Street in the rain and the thunderstorms, you name it.
It was quite often.
Yeah. And, that really meant a lot, and it means a lot, because we all, represent our constituents, and we all have jobs and businesses outside of the ANC, but just understanding your passion and hearing it from you very early in the morning, really meant a lot. So I thank you for that as well. And you will definitely be missed, and congratulations on your new home.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Having no further business before the commission, we are adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
have a good evening. You got it.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.